Welcome to the episode of Confident AF Live Boom. My name is Brayden Foster. I'm the author of Confident AF Unleash Your Inner Badass, here to help you fearlessly grow and scale your business by creating internal certainty, unshakable faith, and radical self-trust. Today, I want to share 5 quotes that absolutely changed my life in a really huge and powerful way. One of the things that has really stuck out in my mind from 2025 going into 2026 is that there's only 3 things we can control in our life and our business. We can control our perceptions, we can control our actions, and we can control our decisions. And our perceptions lead us to our decisions, and our decisions lead us to our actions, which means the most important piece about our business, about ourselves, about co-creating in our relationship with God is always going to be our perceptions. Our perception is how we view and perceive things, how we view and perceive business, how we view and perceive social media, AI, paid marketing, our clients, the humans around us. Everything boils down to perceptions, which lead to decisions and actions. And the reason why I wanted to share these 5 quotes today is because these 5 extremely powerful quotes have completely changed my perceptions in a really big, beautiful, and important way. The first quote that completely changed my life and my perceptions is an anonymous quote. I saw it in a video, or maybe it was a picture post. Doesn't matter, but I've never been able to let this leave my mind. It is RIP to the missed opportunities due to shyness and low self-esteem. Y'all, I am, people talk about keyboard warriors, people who are hiding behind social media profiles like a balloon, a cat, or a dog, living in their mom's basements, that kind of a thing, who feel so easily loud and confident as they hide behind a keyboard. I'll be honest, I am really working on going to more live events, more interactions with higher level thinkers, higher level achievers, and just, letting COVID Brandon go. The Brandon who fell in love with Zoom and the Brandon who fell in love with YouTube and podcasts and everything else. I still love that piece of me, but it is so different to go out and interact and meet people. And when I think about all the things in my business that have really transformed my business and by God's grace allowed me to grow my business to the way they have, and seeing how God's grace shows up in my clients' businesses, there's one really clear common theme, which is, as my friend Amanda Francis says, every fear you have is a fear you get to overcome. And as I always tell my clients, on the other side of every fear you have are God's biggest blessings for you and your business. And there's 2 reasons why we allow our fears to overpower us. One is because of shyness, which I like to think of shyness as we're just afraid of what other people are going to think. We're afraid of how we're going to appear, how we're going to be judged or misjudged or characterized or thought of. And it really matters to us because as human beings, we all just want to be loved, respected, and appreciated. And number 2 is low self-esteem. Low self-esteem means low view of self. And that is your perception. And what's interesting to me is the people who are always growing and scaling their business on a new level every single year, they're always facing their fears. They're always asking God for more courage and more grace and more wisdom to overcome challenges and obstacles and never let their fears hold them back from the mission that He put inside of their hearts, which is really, really powerful. So that's quote number 1. Quote number 2 is, what happens if all the things you are not grateful for today were taken away tomorrow? I don't know about you, but one of the prayers I've had for a very long time is, God, every day, please help me to be more grateful today than yesterday. This quote comes from Jim Kwik's book, Limitless. He also has another great quote, which is what you appreciate appreciates. But then I heard somebody else say it. So maybe he wasn't the original person who came up with that. But it was such a powerful question when I read his book, because as an entrepreneur, one thing I've noticed is that once you hit a goal or a milestone, you always want more. Your desires always grow for expansion. And I want to add three important pieces about this quote. Number one, being dissatisfied and wanting to grow does not mean that you're ungrateful. It means your desire is expanding because you want to experience more of the goodness that God has for you in your life and your business, which is natural. Number two, gratitude is an emotional feeling of appreciating what you already have. And number three, and this is a little bit off the point, but I want to share this anyway. One of the best hacks or tricks that I've ever found that is actually in the Bible, with Thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. So request is something you're asking, but with Thanksgiving. And so we thank God for things that haven't happened yet because of our belief. And so I encourage you to take time today, and I like to do this every day. I've noticed myself doing this more and more, but it's just like, God, thank you for my health. Thank you for my car. Thank you for my home. And some of this stuff might sound rudimentary or not very special, but when you put it through the lens of what if it was taken away from you tomorrow, you just appreciate it so much more. So much more. So really powerful question that changed my life, because the other thing is that God's grace is a multiplier of all the good things that we have in our life and our business. And if you can appreciate what little you've been given, more is always given. And I also think that's really, really important too. Quote number 3. This is a Louise Hay quote. Even the poorest of families can afford a funeral. Money goes where it's demanded. And I think about this often because when it comes to growing and building a business, the two most important resources are time and money. And before you have the resources monetarily to pay people or to scale or to do paid advertising, you're going to pay with time. But time is your most valuable commodity. And the reason why this is so incredibly important in entrepreneurship, and it does not matter what level you are on. In fact, I feel like this becomes even more important as you go in your scale. Had a great conversation with Cindy towards the middle of 2025, and she said, Brandon, she said, you always want to hire for the level you want to hit to next, not the level you're currently on. In other words, you're hiring in faith for the expansion. And whenever it comes to hiring, it requires more money. It requires more resources. When it comes to doing a major project, it requires more money, requires more resources. And so one of the biggest things that you will face as an entrepreneur as you're growing and building your business is the question of, can I afford that? Can I afford to hire this person? Can I afford this infrastructure? Can I afford this coaching program or this mentor? Can I afford to integrate that new website or redo all of this stuff? Can I afford it? And so the reason why this quote is so important to me is because it reminds me that I can afford anything that I really, really want. Anything that I really want to afford, that I really want to buy, that I really want to purchase, I need to believe it's possible first. And if I can just believe that it's possible for me to afford it, and I can just ask myself and ask God, okay, how can I afford it? How can I make this achievable? How can I afford to pay this person? How can I afford to invest in this program? How can I afford to do this? And I'm willing to entertain the possibility, then all the answers and solutions can be shown. Because as soon as you say, I can't afford it, you are not going to see any of the possibilities or any of the solutions, no matter what it is, because you've already decided that you can't. But if you can say, even the poorest of families can afford a funeral. So if they can do that, then I can figure out how to afford this. And I believe in that possibility. And how can I do that in a way that feels good, easy, and supportive to me right now where I'm in my life, my business? Man, you are off to the races because, growth requires resources. And the best resources you can have as you grow and scale your business is more people. More people require more money. And as you grow in your own zone of genius, you have to make sure that you're offloading your tasks to other people, right? So that's my favorite quote number 3. Quote number 4 is from Gabby Bernstein. And I remember I was driving home. I think I just gotten a shake, finished my workout, and I was listening to one of her audiobooks. I don't remember if it was Judgment Detox or something else. But she said, you've forgiven someone when you pray the same prayers for them that you pray for yourself. And man, when I heard that as I was driving, I was like, oh, Brandon, you think you have forgiven a lot of people, but how many of those people have you actually been praying the same prayers you pray for yourself? The same prayers you pray over your own health, your own finances, your own business, your own relationships, your own people. And it just really hit me. It really hit me because God calls us to love one another. And man, that will just really make you think. So I'm going to put it on you, boo. Are you praying the same prayer for the people that have hurt you that you pray for yourself? Because when you're praying that, you've really, really forgiven them. And remember, you don't have to want to forgive people. You just want to be willing to forgive people. If you can just go to God and be like, God, I don't really want to forgive this person, but I'm willing to forgive. Please open my heart to see them differently, to believe differently, and let this go. It's huge. That's the topic of my next book, y'all, by the way. It's forgiveness. Releasing bitterness, angerness, resentment toward a person, thing, situation, past events. Really, really, really powerful. Quote number 5 is an OG quote from my book, Confident F, Unleash Your Inner Badass. I don't know why I just went Texas slang on y'all. I love this quote. I remember when this download happened. I just remember God gave it to me, and it was such a beautiful thing when it happened. But nothing is outside of your reach once you decide it isn't. Nothing is outside of your reach once you decide it isn't. And that is my prayer for you in 2026, boo. My prayer for you in 2026 is that you truly believe that nothing is outside of your reach for you or your business or for your family or for your finances or for your health, no matter what your current life situation or circumstance is, that you believe nothing is outside of your reach once you decided it isn't. And if you just decide, because of God's love, grace, and his favor, that is not outside of your reach, then you can open up to all the doorways and all the possibilities. Thank you all for listening to this podcast episode. Make sure that you stay tuned for next week's episode. If you're not part of our Facebook group, I would absolutely love to have you, boo. And if you haven't bought Confident AF, Unleash Your Inner Badass, make sure you snag a copy today.